What if the most feared sniper in hockey never laid a hand on anyone? Mike Bossy didn't need to fight. He humiliated opponents with nothing but pure skill. While others threw punches, he just kept scoring. In an era where being tough usually meant dropping the gloves, Bossy rewrote the script. He played with elegance, precision, and ice-cold focus, and still made defenders look helpless. Every time he touched the puck, it felt like a goal was coming. And no matter how many times teams tried to rough him up, he never cracked. He didn't fight back. He just put the puck in the back of the net. But how did a player like that not only survive in the brutal world of 1980s hockey, but dominate it? Let's go back to where it all began. Back then, hockey wasn't just physical, it was downright brutal. If you didn't hit back, you were called soft. If you didn't fight, you got pushed around. That's what made Mike Bossy such a shock to the system. He didn't just avoid fights, he completely ignored them. And somehow, he still became the most dangerous goal scorer in the league. Teams didn't know what to do with him. They slashed him, shoved him, taunted him, trying to knock him off his game. But Bossy never gave in. He never changed who he was, and if he had tried to play the tough guy role just to fit in, he might have faded away like so many others who couldn't take the hits. Instead, he stayed true to himself. He kept skating, kept scoring, and let the numbers speak. And the result? One of the greatest dynasties the NHL has ever seen. Without Bossy, the Islanders may never have won 4 straight Stanley Cups. Without his goals, his calm, and his class, that team isn't the same. So how did a guy who never fought end up earning the respect of every locker room in the league? And how did he still break record after record in a league built on grit, pain, and toughness? That's the part of the story most fans still don't know. Mike Bossy grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Montreal, Quebec, a quiet kid from a big French-Canadian family. He was the 5th of 10 children, and while his house was full of noise, he didn't talk much, didn't make a fuss, and didn't pick fights. But give him a stick and a puck, that's where he came alive. By the time he was a teenager, Bossy was scoring goals like it was second nature. He joined the Laval National of the QMJHL and immediately started breaking records. In just 5 seasons of junior hockey, he scored 309 goals. A number so absurd, it didn't even seem real. But no matter how many times he'd lit the lamp, there was one thing scouts couldn't stop talking about. He didn't hit. Bossy played clean, smart, and skill first. And that scared NHL teams. When the 1977 NHL draft rolled around, Bossy sat and waited. Teams that needed scoring, teams who'd watched him dominate in junior, still passed. Again and again. Some general managers openly said they didn't think he'd survive in the NHL without getting hurt. Others just didn't want a player who wouldn't throw a body check. 19 names were called before his. Finally, with the 15th pick, the New York Islanders made their move. Their GM, Bill Torrey, had been torn. He wanted grit, but he also wanted goals. His head scout, Jim DeValano, pushed hard for Bossy, saying he was the purest goal scorer they had ever seen. Torrey hesitated. Should he draft someone tougher like Dwight Foster, or bet on the quiet kid who didn't fight but always scored? In the end, he trusted the talent. The Islanders chose Bossy, and it turned out to be one of the greatest draft decisions in NHL history. Not only did Bossy make every team regret passing on him, but he changed what NHL success could look like. He showed that you didn't need to hit to hurt the other team. You just had to put the puck in the net. And that's exactly what he did. Mike Bossy didn't waste a single second proving the doubters wrong. From the moment he stepped onto NHL ice, he showed exactly why the Islanders had taken a chance on him. In his rookie season in 1977-78, Bossy scored a stunning 53 goals, the most ever by a rookie at the time. He didn't just have a good first year, he broke records and made history. While most first-year players struggled to adjust to the speed and physicality of the NHL, Bossy made it look easy. Night after night, he found open space, timed his release perfectly, and beat goalies before they even saw the puck coming. Fans couldn't believe how smooth and effortless he looked. Coaches couldn't figure out how to stop him, and teammates quickly realized they were playing alongside something special. One of the biggest keys to his success? Chemistry. Bossy was placed on a line with center Brian Trottier and winger Clark Gillies, a trio that would go on to become one of the most dangerous lines in NHL history. Trottier brought vision and leadership. Gillies added size and toughness. And Bossy? He finished every play. He turned good passes into goals. He made their line lethal. At first, there were still whispers, people saying he couldn't keep it up, that someone would eventually knock him off his game. But the more they tried, the more Bossy scored. Defensemen tried to rough him up, hoping he'd shy away from contact. Instead, he skated around them. Goaltenders adjusted their angles, but he always seemed one move ahead. It didn't matter how they played him, he found a way. By the end of his rookie season, Bossy had not only won the Calder Trophy as the NHL's top rookie, but he also led the entire league in power play goals. with 25. He was the first rookie in NHL history to score 50 goals, and that number wasn't a fluke. It was the beginning of something much bigger. In fact, he would go on to score at least 50 goals in each of his first 9 seasons. More importantly, Bossy started changing the narrative. People had always said you needed to fight to earn respect in the NHL. Bossy proved you didn't. He earned it with goals. He made fans jump out of their seats without ever throwing a punch, and as his highlight reel grew, so did the admiration from across the league. Veteran players, who once questioned whether he was tough enough, started praising him, not because he fought back, but because he never needed to. Bossy's toughness wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was quiet and focused. He took hits, bounced back, and kept scoring. That's what real toughness looks like. And in just one season, he didn't just silence the critics. He changed the way the hockey world viewed strength. Bossy wasn't the kind of player who barked or brawled. He was the kind who let his stick do the talking, and it spoke loud and clear. This guy was for real. Mike Bossy wasn't just part of the New York Islanders dynasty. He was one of the main reasons it ever existed. Between 1980 and 1983, the Islanders won 4 straight Stanley Cups, something only a few teams in NHL history have done, and Bossy was at the center of it all, delivering when it mattered most, not with fists or big hits, but with goals that crushed the hopes of other teams. In those 4 cup-winning years, Bossy scored 61 playoff goals. That's not just impressive, that's elite. He averaged more than 15 goals per playoff run, and he did it against some of the best defensive teams of the decade. It didn't matter how physical they were or how much they tried to slow him down. Bossy always found the back of the net. That was his answer to everything, so like to score, and score again. In 1980, during the Islanders' first championship run, Bossy put up 23 points in 16 playoff games. He wasn't just riding along, he was leading the charge. The following year, in 1981, he scored 17 goals and finished with 35 points in the playoffs, the highest point total in the league that postseason. He had turned into a playoff monster. By then, nobody was questioning his toughness. He didn't have to fight. He took all the punishment teams could throw at him and still beat them with his stick. But it was the 1982 playoffs where Bossy truly cemented his legend. In Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final against the Vancouver Canucks, he scored one of the most iconic goals of his career. As he was being pulled down by a defender, Bossy launched a backhand shot while falling and scored. That goal became a defining moment of the Islanders dynasty. It wasn't just flashy, it was fearless, and it gave the Islanders a 3-0 series lead. They'd go on to sweep Vancouver, with Bossy scoring 7 goals in that final alone. His performance that year earned him the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. He finished with 17 goals and 27 points in 19 games. At that point, even the toughest critics had to admit it. Mike Bossy wasn't just a great scorer, he was a pressure player, a big moment guy. He didn't back down, even when defenders tried to take him out of the game with hits and cheap shots. And most of all, he never changed who he was. Teammates like Brian Trottier and Clark Gillies often said that Bossy's mental toughness was just as strong as his goal-scoring ability. He wasn't loud, but he was locked in. He didn't play dirty, but he played smart. He knew how to pick his spots, how to avoid hits, and how to show up when it counted most. Coaches praised him for his consistency and fearlessness. He was always ready, always focused, and always dangerous. And through it all, Bossy never dropped the gloves. Not once. In a time when most superstars were expected to toughen up by fighting, he stayed true to his game. A game built on skill, timing, and the ability to make a goalie look foolish in half a second. By the mid-1980s, Mike Bossy was still lighting up the scoreboard, but behind the scenes, his body was beginning to break down. The same back that helped him stay balanced through cross-checks and slashes was now becoming his biggest problem. It started with stiffness, then sharp pain, then long stretches where just getting out of bed hurt more than any hit he'd taken on the ice. Bossy had always avoided the rough stuff, but that didn't mean he avoided pain. He took countless hits, slashes, and cheap shots, all without ever throwing a punch back. And through it all, he kept playing, kept scoring, kept leading his team. He never made excuses. He never looked for sympathy. In his words, "I knew I had a job to do. I was a goal scorer. That's what I was there for." In the 1984-85 season, while dealing with serious back issues, he still scored 58 goals and totaled 117 points. Most players would have taken time off or accepted a reduced role. Bossy didn't. He still played with the same fire, the same purpose, and the same deadly accuracy. Bossy later admitted that the pain was constant. After games, it could take hours for the spasms to settle. Treatments became part of his daily routine. Ice packs, heat therapy, painkillers, anything to keep going. And even though doctors warned him that continuing to play could make things worse, he wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. Because the truth is, Bossy loved the game. And more than that, he loved the responsibility. He knew the Islanders counted on him, Not just to score goals, but to set the tone. And every time he stepped on the ice, he sent a message. You don't need to fight to be tough. Real toughness is playing through pain and still delivering when your team needs you. In his final full season, 1985-86, he scored 61 goals. The 9th straight year, he hit at least 50. That streak is still an NHL record. No one else in league history has ever started their career with 9 straight 50-goal seasons. Not Wayne Gretzky, not Alex Ovechkin, just Mike Bossy. But as the pain increased, even he had limits. In the 1986-87 season, Bossy tried to keep going, but could only manage 63 games. His production dipped, and for the first time in his career, he didn't score 50 goals. It was clear something wasn't right. Bossy sat out the entire 1987-88 season, hoping rest and rehab might fix the issue. But the pain never went away, and so, at just 30 years old, Mike Bossy was forced to retire. It was heartbreaking, not just for him, but for fans who knew they were watching a once-in-a-generation scorer bar fade out too soon. But even as his career ended early, Bossy had already proven everything he needed to. He scored 573 goals in just 752 games. That's a higher goals per game average than anyone not named Mario Lemieux. He did it cleanly, quietly, and without ever throwing a punch. Mike Bossy's body gave out before his skills ever did, but in playing through pain, refusing to change, and still scoring at a historic rate, he showed the hockey world a different kind of strength. One that doesn't always make headlines, but never gets forgotten. Mike Bossy didn't leave the game on his own terms. His body made the choice for him. At just 30 years old, with years of elite hockey still in him, he was forced to walk away because of chronic back injuries. For someone who had always pushed through pain without complaining, accepting the end wasn't easy. But by the time he hung up his skates, his legacy was already sealed. In just 752 games, Bossy scored 573 goals. That's the third highest goals per game average in NHL history, behind only Mario Lemieux and Mike Gartner. He hit the 500 goal mark in just 647 games, the second fastest of all time. He didn't need 2 decades or 1,000 games, he just needed a few healthy seasons and a stick in his hands. But Bossy gave the NHL more than numbers. He gave the game a new way to understand toughness. He wasn't loud, he didn't fight, he didn't play dirty, yet he faced constant hits and slashes from defenders who couldn't slow him down, and he kept coming back. Over and over again, he proved that courage doesn't have to look like a fistfight. Sometimes it looks like getting back up after a hit and scoring 2 more goals. Sometimes it looks like taking punishment and never giving any back. That was Mike Bossy. Quiet, skilled, relentless. Today, Mike Bossy is remembered as one of the purest goal scorers to ever play the game, and a symbol of what true toughness really looks like. Not angry, not violent, just unstoppable. Mike Bossy proved something that still matters today. You don't have to fight to be tough. You don't have to scream, shove, or throw punches to earn respect. Sometimes, the quietest guy on the ice is the one doing the most damage. All he did was score, again and again. In the biggest games, under the brightest lights, he delivered. So what do you think? Is Mike Bossy one of the greatest pure goal scorers of all time? Should he be mentioned in the same breath as legends like Gretzky and Lemieux? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. And if you thought Mike Bossy's story was wild, wait until you see what's next. There are 10 things you probably didn't know about Wayne Gretzky, from his childhood routines to the secret behind his on-ice vision. Click here to watch that video now, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story like this.